Hey friends, welcome to this new episode, this new channel called
Fides et ratio.
Fides et Ratio. Yeah. So, what does Fides et Ratio mean, Matthew?
So
Explain.
it's in Latin. So fides means faith, ratio means reason,
Reason.
and it's a beautiful encyclical written by Pope John Paul II, Fides et Ratio, and this is one of the beautiful encyclicals which he had written to show the relation between reasoning and faith. We can also call it like science and religion, that type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've started this new venture on faith and reason, and we've purposely chosen this theme, especially based on this encyclical that has been written by Pope John Paul II. I wish all our audiences to read this book. It's especially needed in these times when people want to just claim that either Christianity or whatever other religions are based on illogical reasonings and all that stuff. But yeah, we are one of those, according to even Pope. Right from the beginning, we have always been using reasoning and scientific reasoning, and we have to give a lot of credit to a lot of our priests sitting in the Vatican, even the Jesuit priests, who have done a lot of uh, backings of their research based on science and scientific methodologies. And so we're going to go right into this deep dive on why we have chosen this whole understanding, and we have based the whole channel based on Fides et Ratio, which is faith and reason. And so we've understood a basic idea of what is faith and reason, but Matthew, and I'll let Matthew do a lot of talking over here. If you could just dive deep into what's all the content over here.
Yeah, so I would like to tell our viewers that it was uh, Tyson who came up with the topic Fides et Ratio. We were planning to start a new channel where we make content exclusively on our faith, on Christian faith, on the Catholic Church and all that. And we were planning what to name it as. And I had the same name of the channel in my mind when you messaged me and said, Matthew, why don't we name that? And that was the most interesting thing. Because what we see today currently, it's all about religion today. Surprisingly, we are in the 21st century, and when people are supposed to talk about science and all, it has all become more and more about religion. And we see people around us who just blindly believe things, and if they feel that someone is not believing what they believe in, they feel insecure, they become defensive and try to hate you. But I think as Catholics, we should be very privileged that we have a good magisterium. We have popes who encouraged us to use our rationality, and they never said to us that science is a threat to religion. But they said that science is something that can explain our faith better. And that is the most beautiful thing. I feel that if we don't reason out and just go by faith, we'll become fanatics. And if we just go by reasoning only, of course we become atheists. But there's one more problem that happens. That is, reasoning cannot always explain everything. I think it is quite practical for all of us, right, Tyson? You must have experienced, I must have experienced, our viewers who are watching us may have experienced. There is some extraordinary event that has happened in our lives because of which we come to the church and again. It is that experience that keeps us going. Maybe someone went to Valankani, someone went to Old Goa to pray to St. Francis Xavier, or even a Hindu or a Muslim. You went to the temple, you went to the masjid, you prayed to God. There could have been a situation where you felt that nothing can be done but only prayer, and miraculously God answers your prayers. And a situation where you felt that cannot be solved by any human intervention, the problem got solved, or the sickness got healed, or you finally got a job, or you passed where you felt that it was not really possible. These are those experiences which really deepen our faith, and these experiences cannot be explained by reasoning.
By reasoning, exactly. I may have a lot of questions over here, but I'd like to kind of here and there deviate. And one of those things, as you were just mentioning, just came to my mind is sometimes if you look at how the context of the faith in Goa itself is. If you see, most of us, when we would ask the most immediate catechists are our own parents.
Yes.
And if you and me would be having serious theological questions, we run to them and we would ask them, why this, why that? And I've been noticing even this generation has not been having kids, have not been getting parents who could satisfy their answer. And I've been, put in a very odd situation sometimes when if I'm having a coffee with one of my friend, if I'm having a phone call on with someone, and then if I ever so bring up this topic on faith, ever so, like, they're like, hey, that's not my cup of tea, kind of a thing, and I don't believe, or I'm not so religious. And that's the whole impression that comes down, and they feel that being religious is you being illogical, which I'm coming to that point, and it's so interesting that they would want to brush away even logic and reasoning that the faith also provides. And it's so interesting that uh, whether it's in Goa or India as a context, we think so far that it's next to impossible to give reasonings, because I think so the whole world is associating to all only the bad.
Yeah, and if you look at our Christian faith, the history of our Christian faith, like St. Paul, when he went to Athens, and that is what beautifully mentioned in this encyclical, when he went to Athens and he wanted to explain his Christian experience, he is a Jew trying to explain that to Greeks.
To Greeks.
And what he does is he beautifully takes up their philosophy and explains Christian theology. So the reasoning which they are using, accepts those concepts, puts it nicely, and explains Christian theology to them. And that is something beautiful which this encyclical brings about. That we have so many trends today, thought patterns, ideologies, belief systems, and even scientific things that come up. How can we use these things to explain our faith? Yeah, and how we can use science to discern our faith and the things that we believe in. For example, I love what the Catholic Church does. Someone goes and claims that I have experienced a miracle, the church will say, wait. And the church will say, we'll investigate it, we'll put a team of doctors, we'll try to see whether what you're claiming is really true or not, whether if you got healed from a sickness, whether that sickness was really incurable, whether it was really deadly, whether there was intervention of medicine or not. It will investigate all those things. Every time a candidate or a venerable person is chosen to be canonized as saint, these are the criteria that is needed, a miracle, and that miracle is investigated. So the church is using reasoning to discern the things that we believe in. The church is not encouraging us to believe in things just blindly. The church wants us to think, to contemplate, to reason out, and use the means of human rationality in that. It's a beautiful thing, which one of these things that encyclical says is, human rationality is a gift of God. It is not in opposition to faith, but it is that which makes us convinced of our faith. And that is the beautiful thing. I would like to ask you, Tyson, why did you feel naming this channel Fides et Ratio? What is your experience?
I mean, being in the seminary and already, like, I came across this book, and I think so it was first brought up by Father Victor Ferrand in the class, and I think so it was all about philosophizing. And but later on, I mean, after coming out and all that stuff, and we were discerning together for a very long time of, we'll come out with the channel, we need to put out the theology content out over there. But discerning the time, and I was sitting down in the Don Bosco Penjim Shrine, and I was just attending a mass, and then I just looked at the whole shrine, which looked so majestic and it was so solemn, and it just came as an obvious thing to me, like, how do I portray and make it very significant on a person's mind throughout, that the faith that they are following has some kind of a strong backing. And the very first thing that popped up my mind is this encyclical, Fides et Ratio. And I said, hey, why not? It's a Latin word, it sounds cool. And I said, hey, yeah, this should be. And I'm like, and I come to you and I say, did you think of any of this, like, but before you say, like, I've thought of Fides at Russia, and, like, we both had that same thing in
Yes.
mind, yeah. And if I'd put you, like, what made you also feel?
So when you ask me for the name of the channel, what we should name, I always want to tell people that my story of my journey to the faith is very much relevant to today's generation. I want youngsters especially, and if there are elders who are watching this video, if there are no youngsters but you come across any youngster, you should tell them, then go and watch this video. uh, like any youngster that grows up or any human being, I had good doubts about belief in God. I had doubts about religion. I was more of a scientific person. I had a lot of interest in science when I was in school. I loved history right from school, and I liked questioning. And I remember when I was growing up in my confirmation classes, catechism classes, I questioned the teacher. I said, in the school I have just read that man has evolved from apes. And the Bible says that God has created us. Now, which one is correct? And the answer that the teacher gave was not satisfactory because she couldn't disprove evolution. Okay, and the science is giving you evidences. So I almost became an agnostic and maybe an atheist to certain phase of life.
Yeah. If you could explain who is an agnostic
Okay,
to some of the audience.
yeah, so agnostic means a person who believes in a supernatural being, but not a definite deity of any religion. Yeah, so it is not Jesus, it is not Ram, it is not Allah, nothing. You believe that there is a supernatural power, but that supernatural power or being does not have a particular face, a definite name, a definite figure, nothing.
Okay.
So you just believe there is someone above. So that's agnostic. But I became an atheist because science made more compelling appeal, like, okay, we have some tangible things. And I was always saying, if there is God, why did he not give us anything tangible? Something physical that we can see, that we know about, that existed in this world. And I started doubting religions. But what came to my mind again is this, that if I don't study the religions properly, what they claim, and really find out whether these persons who are religious figures really existed or not, and whether their claims were really true or not, I have no right to judge any religion or any religious belief. And that's my journey, where I started doing historical research on religions, on the religious figures, and I finally came to Christ. I did a research on resurrection, which I speak about so many times, and I try to explain the resurrection as a true event through rational reasoning, okay, rational arguments. You take some historical events which are proven on the basis of archaeological and historical evidences, and you take that as indicators. I think on my personal channel also I've made exclusive videos on this to explain. So to construct, I had simple questions which I think anyone would have. Is there a God? If there is a God, which one? Okay, can we say all gods are equal or all gods are same? If we say that all gods are same, why they did not teach about each other, and why their teachings are contradictory to each other? If they are contradictory and if they have never spoken about each other, that means either one of them is true or all are true, or none of them are true. So how do we answer that? So these are the doubts I had, and as I grew, there were more and more doubts, more and more doubts, and I have journeyed that. Took me around 10 to 12 years to finally get convinced, and here I am. So for me, this particular encyclical is very, very personal, and Fides et Ratio is my motto of life.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you've seen how the seminary is designed, your full curriculum is designed that you first learn philosophy.
Yes.
And you go through stages. Maybe it's a Western philosophy, you take the Indian philosophy, and then when things are just popping up your head, and that's a very good phase, because I've noticed most of the seminarians go through a phase of doubt.
Yes.
And that's because for the first time they're going that deep. They have not let their minds question to that extreme and extent, which makes them fall in darkness. And I have also seen seminarians just like in the evening, they're not able to digest what they have just read, and they walk with that whole cloud in their mind as though it's going to just storm right away, and it looks like they're ready to pack their bags and go home.
It's just not about seminarians. You look at any Christian who is trying to read a Bible and try to interpret certain things, then they go to extreme of leaving the church and getting into any sects or denominations and this and that, because they don't understand concepts. What they don't understand is that there is a huge background of philosophy, of so many philosophical schools which the church has used to define the doctrines. Like, for example, John Paul II very nicely explained in this encyclical how the church has been using it, the Christians right from the first century. And this was the Pope who was philosophical by himself, using faith and reasoning by himself, and which is why he was very successful in bringing down communism. So we can define the life of Pope John Paul II into three ways: his act towards communism, his act on doctrines, and his pastoral life. But when his life ended, the world was looking for a pope that could solely focus on defining the faith. That is, the church had doctrinal issues. If you remember, and if anybody remembers, when John Paul II died, the major issues which the church was facing was whether there should be women priesthood, what about the LGBT community. Sexual abuses was slowly coming up, but no one had given it that much attention. It was coming up, but the church had doctrinal issues, and I feel Benedict XVI was the right person to come there. Because when we are talking about faith and reason, this is the guy I say, I really love the literature, the writings and the contribution of Pope Benedict XVI to the magisterium. Because this is the person who was very clear, straight to the point about what we believe and how we define it. And even when he goes to define it, he says that there are aspects of faith which cannot be defined, which can only be experienced. And I think his Deus Caritas Est, that encyclical is a beautiful encyclical of all that is. If we are talking about a smart guy on a rational side and faith side, Benedict XVI is the guy who would do that.
They call him the bulldog of the
Yes, they call him the bulldog, the watchdog. They call him everything. They call him, already started calling him doctor of the church. So many saints in the past have given us a good deposit of faith, defining a lot of things. But I think a lot of issues which were not faced by the church in earlier history were faced in the 20th century and the 21st century. And Benedict XVI helped Pope John Paul II to put to rest a lot of things. And when he went away, when he became the Pope, when he became Benedict XVI, he was able to handle that. But there were certain things which he could not handle, which were more pastoral.
Correct. And then comes in
Pope Francis,
Pope Francis.
the right guy for the time, so to say. And this video is also a tribute to Pope Francis, and we are going to talk about him. You have witnessed the election of Pope Francis, right? What were your reactions when you saw him?
I mean, I was in a confused state of mind, and I'm like, I've not seen this guy around.
Me too.
Yeah, who's this? And you know, the minute he comes out and he says something, and I think so, maybe the church also was just waiting for something fresh, for something new. And you know, if you have seen it, and I'm sure most of the people must have already seen that movie, The Two Popes.
The Two Popes, yes, yes.
And you see, one thing that movie has done is it's portrayed Pope Benedict XVI as someone who is like, you know, all rough and very rigid, and because of him the church is stale. But they don't understand those are gifts. He was very theologically very sharp in his mind. He gave good lessons. I liked his books, the three books that he came on, the baptism, the whole historical
Jesus of Nazareth.
Jesus of Nazareth.
What people don't understand is, Tyson, that the times when Benedict XVI was elected, maybe later on in his papacy, the doctrinal issues were almost came to rest. Some of those people who really want to change the church, they felt frustrated because they want to change the church. There are news channels and media channels and politicians and secular leaders who want to say, oh, this is a progressive pope, that one is a conservative pope. Benedict XVI made it very clear, you cannot define the pope in political terms like conservative or progressive, because the pope has to be faithful to the teachings of Christ. And accordingly bring changes, and this is something which he made very clear. What people don't realize is when he was elected, the church had doctrinal problems which he could explain it better. But then as we went ahead, as his papacy went ahead, the church had a lot of pastoral issues, and he was humble enough to admit that this is not for him to handle. We need
Exactly.
someone who can handle this better.
Exactly. I mean, was he the first one or was he the second one
Yeah,
to
in
retire?
600 years, he's the first one
To retire, right?
resign. Yeah.
Resign, and that itself, I think, so shook the world at that point of time. Is this possible, and all that stuff? But I think so. The world went forward with Pope Francis.
Yes, and if today people love Pope Francis, I think we should say thanks to Benedict XVI
Exactly.
for stepping aside and giving way to Pope Francis, who has
Exactly.
done beautiful, beautiful work, which we are going to talk in brief
Yeah.
about. So you were talking to me about the experience when we saw the election and saw the face. Even I was confused. I said, "Who is this guy? Never seen." Like, compared to election of Benedict XVI, everybody knew that Joseph Ratzinger could be the next pope. He was like the right hand of
Exactly.
John Paul II.
Yeah.
John Paul II was involved in a lot of pastoral work, but whenever it came to issues of doctrines and defining things, he went back to Joseph Ratzinger when he was cardinal, and that's why he was made in charge of doctrine of faith, and he would define that, and John Paul II promulgated a nice partnership there. Here, Pope Francis had a lot of burden to carry. We have to admit that Vatican came into a lot of things which Benedict XVI was not able to handle. And Benedict XVI understood that he cannot handle it. And then comes Pope Francis. And Pope Francis realized what the church needs. The church or the world already understood, okay, the church is never going to do this. The church is never going to allow abortion. The church is never going to allow gay marriages. Church is never going to allow women priesthood. But what about the other issues which are happening? Is anyone addressing that? And from nowhere, they pick up this guy. Yeah, Jorge Mario Bergoglio. And they say that he was the third person or the second person who won the most votes when the conclave was happening to elect Benedict XVI. And we were like, expecting, okay, what is this guy going to do? There were some things starting that he did amazingly. Like, he said, okay, I'm not going to stay in the Apostolic Palace, I'm going to stay in a hotel. That was, what is this? I'm not going to wear the red shoes. I'll just go with my this thing. So initially, even I did not understand what is this guy trying to do. Yeah, when he took the name Francis, why? We thought like Goans, okay, must be because of Saint Francis Xavier, because he's a Jesuit. But no, he said, took the name because of Saint Francis of Assisi, who is a Franciscan. I'm like, what is this guy trying to do now? A lot of things. We didn't envision what he was trying to do. But the first bang he gave was with Laudato Si. And I think that is the time when the world started noticing that he is addressing real issues of the world. With Laudato Si, it's not only about environment, but social justice, economic justice for those who are poor and all those things. What did you come to know about?
Even when I started when noticing about all of his other writings, his Misericordiae Vultus.
Yes.
I mean, that was something also that I don't think so most of us have even thought about, emphasized, and I also experienced the love of and the mercy. And you must have noticed there was a lot of retreats preached on that line of mercy. And some churches were given the privilege of, like, you enter through that door and you'll receive more mercies and
Yeah.
grace. And one thing that I liked about his stuff was that he was not only proclaiming it to the laity, he was very hard on the clergy as well.
I was coming to that.
Yeah, if you want to share, if you want to share
Yeah,
something
yeah,
on
yeah.
that.
What I liked about his papacy was he addressed the priests, the bishops, those who are heads of the church, and he made them accountable. There are three areas he made the leaders of the church accountable. First is in their pastoral life. You cannot be behind the altar and be aggressive and arrogant to the people. He said, be compassionate, be merciful. It is the priests who have to be merciful first. And that was superb because, all this while we felt that people are the only ones who commit sins. The priests are a second category, the Pope will handle them. He said, no, the priests have a right to have a holy priest. Sorry, the people have the right to have a holy priest.
And when it comes to this point, right, here is where I've also seen the reaction of the priest. When he makes a good statement, he's my friend.
Yes.
When it comes on to them,
Yeah. Oh, this Pope is.
There are not all things that I would like to follow about this Pope. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
come
yeah.
on. Who are you
That
kidding?
is
Who
the
are you
thing.
kidding?
We should accept that. The second area where he targeted the priest was the Roman Curia. Mishandling of funds,
The
mishandling
funds.
of money, Vati leaks that happened during Benedict XVI time. He tried to put it in order, and beautifully, what he did was appoint an atheist economist to handle the Vatican banks. That was something surprising. And the third one was the sexual abuses. So the papacy of Pope Francis will be focused on handling the sexual scandals, the abuse scandals that happened in the church by the clergy against children. That was the focus of his papacy, and the other focus was the how the church addresses the LGBT community or the gay people, all these things. But in all of this, I find this is too much. This is too much. Every time gay thing, this and that. Benedict the 16th and had already given it in the Catechism of the Catholic Church that we have to accept and embrace the gay people with compassion. They are as humans as we are, this and that. And if they are praying and searching God, we are no one to judge. We have to accompany them and so on and so forth. It was already put. Problem is, during Benedict XVI's time, it did not come into focus. And I think he really didn't understand the pastoral side of it. He was only trying to focus on the doctrinal side. Pope Francis tried to put it on the pastoral level. And the beautiful statement that he said, if someone is gay and is searching God, trying to live a good life, who am I to judge? It's a beautiful statement. But every time during his papacy, this movement, LGBT movement, which was really disgusting, every time they wanted to push on to this Pope to allow marriages in the church. I mean, like, why?
Why?
Why? Do you really have faith? If you really have faith, then you will understand what the scriptures say
What the
about
calling of, yeah.
homosexuality, what everything say, and you should have shut your mouth. Okay, you should have realized that yes, people are already accepting you. We are not rejecting you anymore. Yeah, but what about you? Are you trying to tell us that I would like to do whatever I want and still be in the church? Then what is the church for? The church is for holding up to certain morals. And in the interview which he did on 60 Minutes channel, he made three things clear. Women priesthood? No.
No.
Women deacons? No.
No.
Gay marriages? No. That was fantastic.
Yeah, and so the point of even he going down, visiting the poor,
Yes.
his impact, and even recently, I mean, we got to know that he was just before he could even fall ill, and those 3 days that he was suffering in the hospital, he made sure that he was in touch with those people who were suffering in the war, and is very concerned for them, has brought a newness of light,
Yes.
which I have seen. Uh, but I also have this one thing, that probably most of the Catholics, you can say whether it's the conservatives have this thing, or the liberals, or um, the Orthodox. Did he ever go overboard?
Well, he tried to balance between a lot of strings, I would say. There were these traditionalist Catholics who wanted to go back to the Tridentine Mass and this and that. He tried to say, no, if you're trying to be stuck in your traditions, you are not going to have that fresh air to be more pastoral and more compassionate, and which in his way he was right. I feel that a lot of these people in the church who just want to be faithful to traditions only and rituals only can hardly be pastoral. They can hardly understand what human beings are really going through.
Correct.
That is true. But at the same time, traditions are necessary. And he never stopped any tradition. He never put an end to any tradition. When he went to the poor, you were talking about war and all. What I liked the most about his papacy was, Tyson, his involvement in world politics. This was the Pope who was very much known, like John Paul II, getting involved into world politics. And this is the comparison I would draw between John Paul II and Pope Francis. They got involved in world politics. First thing that I remember was Cuba and US was almost about to get into a war. Pope Francis comes in between. This was when Barack Obama was the president, and he stops it. Somehow he was able to speak to both of these leaders. He was able to convince Fidel Castro of Cuba, he was able to convince Obama there is no need of war. And I think President Obama took it very, very nicely. Both of them, of course, appreciated Pope Francis. Obama immediately invited him to the US, and this was the first Pope who went to the US Common Congress and addressed the whole Congress, that is both Republicans, Democrats, all together. And what he said about America, the land of the brave and the free, and he could speak to the Americans in such a way in their own language, and he had a grand welcome in the US. But that was just the beginning. We gradually see he is getting involved in the war in Syria, trying to rescue, speak up for the children. He went there, he spoke to the leaders, he spoke to the people, and he brought families back home, back to Rome with him. He gave them shelter, he gave them food, he gave education. When people were trying to escape the Middle East region, especially Syria, Yemen, and all these lands, and trying to go to Europe, people were getting drowned just outside Italy in the Black Sea and in the Mediterranean. And the Pope stood up and spoke up for these people, and he said, these are refugees, these are human beings searching for food, shelter. They're searching for refuge, they're searching for safety, and you have so much. You call yourself Christians. How can you be a Christian when you just let them die? And I think this was a nice pinch on the conscience of a lot of European nations who declare themselves as Christians but neglect most of these things. And people started taking them in. This was a beautiful thing that happened. This was the time, Tyson, I really felt this guy is doing something. This guy is really doing something, because the Pope working within the church, within Catholics, fine, but the Catholic faith, the Christian faith makes no sense when we are not dialoguing with people of other faith, people of other religions, people who are not part of the Catholic Church, officially, so to say, and when we become indifferent to the concerns of the world as such. But he started showing those signs that he is getting the whole world together. And the third thing that he did was the friendship that he built with Muslims. He's the first Pope to go to the Arab Peninsula. He visited UAE, he went to Iraq, to the very place where the ISIS had told that they would come to Rome, destroy Rome and kill the Pope. And look at the guts this guy had. He went to the same spot, stood there and prayed and had a dialogue with the leader of Muslims there. This was a real damage, I think, to the whole ISIS ideology. This is what he would do. Recently he went to Indonesia, in Indonesia where this cathedral is there, and just opposite is a mosque, and there's a tunnel which the president has built to connect the mosque with the cathedral, and this is a sign of friendship, and the Pope went there and encouraged that. And I think what the world will never forget, or the Muslims will never forget, was he speaking up for the Muslims who were persecuted in Myanmar and in Bangladesh. So Myanmar, the Rohingyas were troubled a lot. They went to Bangladesh. There also they were troubled. Some of them trying to cross borders, come to India. And all that was happening. Nobody was giving them shelter. He goes, speaks up for them. He goes and speaks up for people who nobody even thinks about. And he does that. And then we know finally these days what he was involved in. He spoke up against war between Russia and Ukraine initially, tried to show what these people are doing. Imagine a Pope. We know in 1982, John Paul II was shot by, allegedly by KGF, a Russian spy, a spy of the USSR. And this Pope could have had that danger that he's speaking so much against Russia, something could have happened, but he still took that courage to speak up against that. And when the thing came about Israel and Palestine, now Russia and Ukraine war is something on a lighter side, but we all know that a war between Israel and Palestine is the war for the whole world. Where even surprisingly, even India stands up and some of the people start taking sides for whatever reason. But he was the only person in the whole world. A lot of international leaders restrained themselves from saying what Pope Francis said. That is, Israel has crossed its limits. It is doing terrorism. And before he died, on the previous day, that was Easter Sunday, at Urbi et Orbi blessing, he still prayed for the same, that is peace. Peace in Ukraine, Russia, peace in Gaza, peace between Israel and Palestine, peace in Syria. Peace is what he wanted. And I think people call him the People's Pope. I think we should call him the Pope of Peace. The Pope who build bridges across communities, and that is something wonderful that he has done in his papacy. Imagine, it's so wonderful to see Hamas and Hezbollah paying their condolences for the Pope. This is like out of the blue moon. And this is something I think the Pope has really made us proud. What we Catholics can take away from his life, and Goan Catholics or Catholics in India, what we can do taking his life as a lesson for our country.
Correct.
The way he acted, how we can act in the situation that we are in our country.
And so with this, I guess we come to the end of this episode, the first introductory episode on Fides et Ratio. And we are sure to come with some more exciting stuff in the future.
Yes,
We'll be
yes.
getting a lot of more speakers,
Yes,
guest speakers.
more speakers, and I'll try to avoid myself because I talk a lot.
No. I mean, yeah, we've all got our side of the theology, but I want even our audience, to be connected. We'll be getting some, hopefully, good theological professors from the seminaries and
Yes, some priests.
So from even the Salesians, the Jesuits,
Some
and
nuns
all,
as well.
The nuns as well, exactly.
Yes.
Even some lay people, if
Even some
possible.
lay people, yeah, there are wonderful
And
lay people.
I want you to comment down in the comment section what is something that's exciting you.
Yes.
Right, and please make a mention.
And the topics that you want us to feature on this channel.
Exactly, something that
Regarding our faith.
you've never understood, something has been troubling you. You can surely mention in the comment section, and if you don't want to, I'll put in the description the email.
Yes.
And you can email us, and hopefully we can keep you satisfied with all the kinds of content that we can get you out. In the meanwhile, till then, God bless you all, and
Yes, and God loves all of us. Let's spread the love of Christ to everyone.
yes, and till then, see you soon.
See you
Please
soon.
like, subscribe, and share.
Share this video.
Thank you.